just to get back to the flat Earth, and you mentioned cathedrals and a dome, and obviously the dome is something that goes along with the AE, the popular AE circle model quite a lot. And one of the big problems for me, and something that's relevant for you, obviously living in Australia, is basically the two-poled motion of the stars. You know, there's one axle running along the prime meridian, some obviously above it, and there's a north pole, which obviously Polaris is 1 degree off, and there's a south pole which Sigma Octantis is a couple of degrees off. But there are two poles. I mean, all of the stars that seem to be running east to west, because if you're standing on the equator and you look up, you'll see the stars go straight up from the eastern horizon, straight over your head, and straight down onto the western horizon. If you look to the north, you'll see them circle around anti-clockwise, and if you look to the south, you'll see them circle round clockwise. Now that tells me that, like I say, they're on two poles, and I imagine it like a semi-sphere. Yeah, so they're basically half a ball, and they roll over, and obviously as soon as they hit the western bottom of the plane, they'll rise in the east again. You know, obviously that's from observation. But the point is that motion, both of the two poles and of the straight line of the stars going over the middle of the equator, is absolutely impossible. Obviously, with the dome, where you've got the polarises, or at least the North Pole, you know, is the center at the top of the apex of the dome, and everything spins round. I mean, I'm assuming they say it's anti-clockwise, because obviously, if you're in Australia and you then look south, you would see stars travel horizontally across your view. I mean, so true for everybody looking south. Which obviously is not the case. If you look direct south, you're going to see the south circumpolar stars. You're going to see, if you do a time lapse, or there's plenty on YouTube that other people have done, astronomers have done. They will see the star. You will see the stars rotate clockwise around the south central, and the different stars. It's not a reflection of what's happening in the north. It's quite well known by astronomers, amateur astronomers all over the world, that there are different constellations. There's no mirrored constellation anywhere. There's no two stars are the same. There's no two constellations are the same. The whole sky is completely different. Obviously, it changes through the season, through the year. For me, that was a big problem, and it was a big problem with the circle model. I know that you can't look at the heavens and say like the sky's there, but you can in this case, because obviously if there's two poles and the stars are moving in seemingly opposite directions, although like I say, I think they're all on a big semisphere, or an imaginary semisphere, but rolling over the Earth from east to west. That tells us that the circle and dome model is not possible, and it's something that you can obviously check for yourself. I'm sure you've done lots of astronomy and stargazing where you are, but obviously again, if you had a friend in Argentina or Chile and they were looking south at the same time as you looking south in Australia, if you imagine that on a circle model, you've got opposite ends of the circle model, you should be seeing completely different stars from from 30,000 miles away, 20,000 miles away from each other, according to the circle model. But again, it's a well-known fact, an observable fact, that if you look south from Australia, New Zealand, you look south from South Africa, you look south from Argentina, Chile, bottom of South America, and three people look south at the same time. Okay, it's not going to be, it's not going to be night at the same time in all those three places very often. But the point is that they will see exactly the same stars rotating, obviously a slightly different angle, slightly different perspective. So again, it quite easily disproves the circle model. And it's obviously this is just me talking. I might be completely lying, but obviously it's easily researchable facts and observable facts that people can check out about amateur astronomy, which people love to gauge.
I discovered something else as well. With all these city grids and photographs from top down, I noticed that there are many buildings exactly east, west, north, south directed. And what occurred to me, that it doesn't matter on which longitudinal position you are, it's north and south, east, west direction is completely parallel anywhere in the world.
Always the same.
So that particular point of the northern star or the southern circle is always in the same direction. And it's like when you walk the complete longitudinal line, you actually draw a line of that point. So you take that turning point also with you.
Well, I mean, East and West generally don't seem to work very well on the circle model, because there is no straight east or west. East and west curves around away from you, and just as it's pretty obvious that we're not on a ball, because we know that airplane. I know they laugh and joke about it. It's quite. I mean, obviously you had a couple of pilots on the other week, which was great, but obviously, just as airline pilots do not have to tip their nose down, and it's not done automatically by electronic software and stuff as they fly over the ball, as they fly around the ball, they don't have to tip down. It flies level. It flies completely level to the ground. Neither do planes have to turn left or right every few minutes, to compensate for, otherwise they'll end up just going south, basically. And I asked this of the famous pilot, Flight Earth pilot LX, and I had a conversation with him about it. And he said, "No, of course not. I don't have to keep it. I mean, obviously, I have to adjust my course, but it's not a general thing that you have to keep adjusting, left or right. If you're flying east, you don't have to keep turning the plane left every so often to take account for the east basically curving, which again it does do on a circle model. And there's just lots of these practical examples. I mean, daylight hours is another one. The Earth seems to be in two equal halves. It's equal opposites centered at the equator. So basically, the daylight patterns, the day-night patterns of the south are mirrored 6 months apart, to those in the north. So it shows that it's equal. But again, on the circle model, on the Gleason circle popular disk model thing, the south is way bigger than the north. The sun has to cover way much more, territory, way much more distance to give, to try and give the same, the same kind of daylight hours. And obviously, it's pretty impossible for Punta Arenas to be lit up for 17 hours, which is three quarters of a day, over two thirds of the circle needs to be lit up for Punta Arenas, where obviously in the north in December it gets, obviously the Arctic Circle gets no daylight, and those of us in, say, Britain and Europe, we get like 8 to 10 hours in our December solstice. So there's just very practical things which show that the AE circle model doesn't work. And what I've basically been saying for the last hour and a half, Santos, and obviously you've seen my presentations, I've never supported the circle model. Someone come out right and say, it's wrong, and it is wrong. What I've been saying for the last hour and a half is the quicker that we can get away from it, then the quicker we can show people that we're not on a rotating ball in outer space, the big lie, because they, anybody you show this, that they have ammunition that say, yeah, but it can't be this flat circle, this because X, Y, Z, because of the things that we've mentioned and many more, and they will then refuse to look at the problems with the model that they believe. Because if the alternative just doesn't work, if the alternative is stupid or ridiculous in their eyes, then why would they ever get off the ball? The ball explains everything about the heavens, the astronomy, sun, daylight, sunrise, sunset, etc., etc. Obviously, the only things where it falls down is there's no curvature, there's no motion, and everybody lives on top of the ball. Us in Britain should be, should have like a 50-odd degree. 50-odd degree landscape, slant to our landscape. Obviously, there's hills and valleys and everything else, but you're in Australia, Santos. You should be living at, well, the opposite, really. You should be basically virtually underneath the ball. Your landscape should be on top of you. Okay, yeah. Even if gravity, keeps you stuck to it, your landscape should be above it. It should be the opposite. But if NASA were ever to, if we were ever to get NASA to turn one of their supposed space telescopes around, which they don't exist, so they're not going to do it. But if they ever managed to do it, and they could zoom in on you, walking upright in your back garden at the same time as, walking upside down, should I say, and me, and me, but kind of on top of it, then that would prove it was a ball. But obviously they can't do it because they haven't got any space telescopes. And if they did do that, it'd show everybody everywhere on the plane standing upright all at the same time. It's quite easy to disprove the ball, but people have their fingers in their ears because of a lifetime of indoctrination. People are not listening. And why? Because the main alternative model that every single flat earth leader, lead voice, or big channel uses is provably wrong. So it shuts people's minds down straight away. I refuse to look at the flat earth. It's ridiculous because there's no ice wall. You know, planes don't turn left every 5 minutes. The stars, you know, show that it's not right, etc., etc., etc. You can go on and on with it. So, you know, really, I really wanted to speak to you and hope that, you know, you consider it and basically look into these things and see, you know, why a lot of flat earthers are now saying now that this circumodel it doesn't work. And I don't care whether we move to another model or not. I mean, everybody's got different ideas about it, and that's fine. But as long as nobody, if we don't promote that circle model, if we don't use it or, you know, or talk about it or whatever, or basically if you say no, that doesn't work either, then it takes all their ammunition out. They have nothing to. They have nothing to. Yeah, okay. Well, NASA might be liars, but, you know, where's the edge of the Earth or whatever? You know, we don't know that. We don't subscribe to any model. Other than that, the land is flat and we're not moving, and the heavens move above us. But apart from that, here's why the ball isn't. Here's why the ball doesn't work. Here's why the line about outer space. Because it's a big one. It's a great big one. I mean, 9/11's hard enough. You know, 9/11 and hoax terrorism and you know, vaccine and all the rest of that. They're hard enough, you know, subjects to get people to realize, you know, they're being lied to about. But you now try to tell them that all of science, all of the media, all of government, all space agencies and rockets and all the rest of it, that, you know, it's all basically a big con to get us to believe in this vast outer space and universe, and allow them to, you know, introduce evolution, as we well know, the Big Bang and evolution, now quantum nonsense and all the rest of it. You know, it's like I say, it's a huge one for people to get over, and, you know, we are in a spiritual war or a battle for people's minds. It's and it is important.
Kind of de-Christing man.
Yeah, if you like, yeah, it is. It's making us non-divinely made. It's making us, you know, what do we say? You know, random accident, random products of complete accident and chance, which is just. I mean, the more you think about it, the more you look at it, the more you realize that what complete nonsense it is. But the whole point is that with a change in belief, it will make people change their actions and behavior towards each other. I really believe that. You know, forget about religions and this church and that and all the rest of it. If you know whoever he is, but God created the earth, and it's the only thing in existence where light's the only one he created, and people say, well, if God's infinite in power, why didn't he create a billion? Why would he want to? Why would a wise God create a billion earths that he's got to look after? Why not just one and put all the life and all the variety here? I mean, it's, you know, it might, if you're in charge, it's a big enough headache all by itself, getting everything to, you know, all work together and what have you. So it's a very, I think, you know, flat Earth brought me to the truth of that. You know, I was already aware that cross-species evolution was a bit, you know, was a lie, but the flat Earth absolutely brings it home, and I know it brings it home to a lot of people. The truth of the Bible, and at least the truth of creationism, and the truth that, you know, they will have to answer, or they do need to be responsible for their own lives and what they do every day, and that will, you know, like I say, that you'd hope that will change the world slowly, person by person, soul by soul. And that's why it's so important. But like I say, if people are going around saying, you know, the Earth's not a ball, it's this circle, and people say, well, it's not this circle, I'm staying on the ball, then we're back to square one again. It's just not going to help people realize and become aware of the greater realities of existence.
Yeah, well said. Well said. You've established a good argument there. And that should be the way we should be. Yeah, going forward for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Well, done what I wanted to do then.
Sorry.
I say I've done what I wanted to do. Like I say, what I was saying earlier, Santos, was if people are skeptical of the circle model and do, you know, opposition research into it, like we did with the ball, because obviously, you know, at first it's like, oh, you know, whatever, and then the more you look into it, the more you realize that the ball doesn't work. Even though a lot of people try to prove flat Earth is wrong and prove that, you know, the ball is correct, and when they can't, they realize that the Earth's flat. But if we do the same thing with the circle model, and it's up to each individual to do that or not, if people do that for themselves, say, well, okay, let me check out astronomy, and let me check out daylight hours, and let me check out, you know, all the stuff, all the problems with it. You know, then, like I say, it takes that huge big missile or grenade that ball earthers have away. Every single debunking video, a flat earth debunker, and they have millions of views. You know what I mean? Every debate might get a couple of million views, and people might get a few 100,000 views, which is great. And, it's spreading the word. But these things, they get 15, 16 million views. It's like the scientist program. They've got the media backing them up, so they get millions and millions and millions of views. And if you look at the videos, they are always debunking the circle model. They never defend the lack of motion. They never go, they never defend the lack of curvature. They never defend that we're all living on top of the plane. I mean, all the basic things that we know. They never can't defend NASA, but what they can successfully do is debunk the circle model. And I honestly think it was a straw man that was inserted, because obviously the spread of information, we're all going to share everything, and things that are true are going to get shared and stay alive, like the flat earth. People can't understand how come the flat earth's still been going 4 years later. Well, because there's an absolute truth in it. If it wasn't true, people would be excited about it for a few weeks or months, and then it just disappear, it'd go. But every time you step outside, you don't have to step outside, but every time you look across the land that you live, you can see that it's not moving, and it's a flat, gently rolling plane. So, like I say, if people can be as skeptical of the circle and do the research and see why a lot of us have rejected it. I say it doesn't mean welding yourself to another model. You can obviously check out other people's ideas. Like I say, Free Energy channel on YouTube has done like some really impressive work, and certainly brought another alternative flat Earth model, or flat Earth working mechanic, if you like, to our attention. And from then, people have developed their own ideas, and hopefully people will more and more. But if we all stick on something that doesn't work, then we're never going to make any progress, and more people aren't going to wake up to the lie of the globe, and aren't going to wake up to the truth of their own origins and existence, why they're here, what they're for, and that their life matters, that their life counts. Your life matters. If you were created by God, you were created for a purpose. You don't create somebody just for I just need another few billion people just for the hell of it. You know what I mean? Every single one of us has something to offer, has something to has a place. We have a place here, and it's important that we we make the most of it. And it's not just true of bad behavior. It's also true of self-motivation or the opposite, depression. You know what I mean? If you know that God created you, then you get on with things. I really think it motivates people. But truth is vastly important. What does it matter what model it is, as long as we don't flat? Well, as long as you're not promoting a false model, that's fine. As long as you're promoting a model that can be disproved in many different ways. Because I don't think people realise how many amateur astronomers are out there, or how many sailors are out there, how many either airline pilots or flyers, at least frequent flyers. And all these, let's face it, we want to convince all these people. You're not going to convince them with a false model. So, if you do the same opposition research on the AE Circle Gleason's model that we did on the Bohr model, I think many more people will realise this doesn't stand up either. And it's not to panic. Well, is it wrong? Well, no, it's not starting the Earth moving at rotating at 1,038 miles an hour. At the end of the day, there's a third way. Me and Sarah said it before. It's a false dichotomy. So people will endlessly debate and argue between the ball and the circle, and neither of them are right. But neither of them neither of them will accept that there are flaws in their own model, because the other model is so wrong. It's classic. It's classic setup from the rulers. These people are so smart, they're so clever, and they are in control of all our information, including what generally gets seen on the internet. I mean, how many YouTube channels get taken down for especially over the Las Vegas.
It's kind of why I created my own meme here, what I show of how they actually